Hi, and welcome to Journey, a show where Catholic men on the path to priesthood share their journey through seminary. My name is Steven Caraher, and today I am joined by my good friend, Martin Nyberg. Martin, I'm so glad that you're here with us today.
Thank you, Steven. It's good to be with you.
So you're a seminarian for the Archdiocese of Chicago.
That's correct.
So,
correct.
And what year are you going into? How much longer do you have on your journey?
Sure. So I'm going into year 5 of 6 for me. So that's my third year of theology at Mundelein Seminary.
Excellent.
So yeah, we miss you, man.
Yeah. I used to be with you over at Mundelein Seminary for our first 2 years of seminary. It's actually a blessing to have you on the show to reconnect with you and to hear your journey through seminary. So tell me, how has your journey been? From maybe even thinking about the time that you've spent with your family up into the time that you've entered seminary. Can you trace out where that journey began for you?
Sure. Yeah. So priesthood was always something that I knew was a possibility for my life ever since I was really young. Remember my family, we grew up right across the street from our home parish. And so my mom and my dad were always very close with our parish priests. Mm-hmm. So we had priests over for dinner a lot. And my siblings and I, we were altar servers, and we were all pretty involved with the parish growing up. So for as long as I remember, I remember we knew priests, we were friends with priests, and I remember always thinking, okay, yeah, that's an option. That's something that I might be able to do.
Sure, but it wasn't anything that you necessarily felt called to, something that was.
No, not really. I guess so. This is kind of a funny story. In kindergarten, when you graduate, you're supposed to say what you want to be when you grow up.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I said I wanted to be the Pope.
Oh,
when
nice.
I was in kindergarten, but that was, I don't take that for what it's worth. I think once I, got a little bit older, went through grade school, it wasn't. You're right. It wasn't really something that I was desiring or seeking. That came a lot later.
Yeah, and maybe let's speak into that too. When did you maybe going through maybe high school or college, or when did you realize that was something that was on your heart?
Yeah, it wasn't until later on in college, actually. I remember going through middle school and high school. Priests at the parish, they would, and even some teachers at school, they would encourage me to think about priesthood. And my answer was always basically, yeah, I've thought about it, but I don't think that's for me.
Yeah.
So when I was in college, I was a business major, and I was kind of just going through the years, going through my degree.
And where did you go to school?
I went to the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C.
Okay, nice.
And yeah, that's kind of where my faith really went to a new level, I think.
And how was that experience? How did your faith come to a new level at CUA? Were you involved with a Bible study or a small group? How was that experience for you?
Sure. I was part of a men's group on campus. We would meet once a week for just kind of a talk on prayer, basically. The whole point of the group was learning how to take your faith beyond Sunday Mass, learning how to kind of be an everyday Catholic was the idea. So it was mostly focused on learning about prayer, learning about the virtues, and then we would also meet for a daily Mass at another point in the week. And so I made a lot of good friends in that group, and some of my best friends were in that group with me. And so I think the combination of the formation we were receiving just from one another and from priests and professors on campus, but also just the friendship I developed there really kind of made it possible for me to, take the priesthood, seriously and consider that, maybe this actually is something I could do.
Oh, nice. Okay. So it sounds like going through this small group, with this men's group, that you're more open to hearing the call to the priesthood. But can you tell me a little bit about what's been your experience of call to the priesthood? Were there moments where you felt like the Lord was working in your heart, directing you towards priesthood, towards seminary?
Sure. Yeah. So it would probably start earlier in college when I was just learning about what it means to pray, spending time in Eucharistic adoration, and just realizing there were a couple moments I had in the chapel when I just realized that no, the Lord was with me, and He was there for me. And so that I just having the experience of opening my heart to Him in prayer and talking about my life, talking about my desires, talking about my future with Him, and realizing that it was a real relationship that was going on.
Mhm.
That was huge. And so I remember just feeling a lot of peace there on several occasions. So that was kind of the first piece, I think. But then another big piece came in my junior year. I remember one of my electives was a philosophy of religion class. And there was a Dominican priest who was the professor. And I remember he was just kind of going through a lot of the common objections to the existence of God. And in a very kind of systematic, level-headed way, he was just kind of dismantling those objections and really getting into some of the thought of Thomas Aquinas and just showing how, no, our beliefs as Catholics, they really do make sense. And we can defend a lot of it just by, the use of reason, the use of argument. And I remember that made a huge impact on me because around the time God was becoming real for me in a personal way, I was also realizing that, oh, wow, the teachings of the church, they're actually based in reality too. And so those two things coming together, I think really opened this door for me.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, wonderful that you get the prayer piece, but also like the intellectual piece as well, like having it like just so grounded in reality. That's wonderful. Now, do you ever have the experience going through college, maybe like right before you're entering seminary, like were there any like points where you felt like where God was like specifically calling you to the priesthood, like maybe like people saying things to you or anything, or like things in prayer that were like touching you?
Absolutely. It was actually very clear for me, and it was right around the same time I was probably finishing this course in philosophy I was mentioning. So this was my junior year, like I mentioned, and it was around this time there were three encounters that I always go back to when I'm telling my vocation story because, three moments, each about 3 months apart from one another, where people that weren't necessarily my closest friends or people that didn't know me very well, just out of the blue asked me if I'd thought about priesthood, and they encouraged me to think about priesthood. I remember the first one was December of my junior year. There was I was a music minor, and I was doing a recital with one of the graduate students at a church, and we were driving home from this recital, and she just asked me out of the blue. We'd never talked about this in a year of knowing each other. She just said, "So, Martin, I saw you in church. Have you ever thought about being a priest? I think you might be a good
interesting.
priest."
Now, this is somebody
And
who like
just out of the blue. I mean, we had known each other just from, playing music together, but we hadn't really ever talked about faith or
that's interesting.
any of that. So I remember that just seeming really strange. And so I remember when I answered her, I said, "Yeah, not really. I think, I thought about it when I was in high school, but that's not for me." But then 3 more months passed, and I was taking an English class. It was another one of my electives. All these electives were the best thing for me. Taking this English class, and the professor was an Anglican priest. He was this British Anglican priest. And we got to know each other a little bit throughout the course of the semester. And our last day of class, he just out of the blue says, like, "This is none of my business, but have you ever thought about being a priest? Like, I think you might be a good priest." And this time my answer was a little different. I said, "Well, I have thought about it, and I guess I'm still thinking about it a little bit, but, I don't really think that that's, what God's calling me to do." And then 3 more months passed, and I'm finishing a summer internship in DC, and I'm getting ready to move out of this house where I was living. And my roommate in this house, as I'm packing my things up, he says, "Martin, I've been watching you all summer. I think you'd be a good priest. Have you ever thought about being a priest?" And I think it was that moment where just internally I decided, okay, like, God, I need to start taking this more seriously. And because I think because I tell myself that I want to do your will, but I can't be true to that and ignore this, which seems like your call.
Just, so clear. Yeah, it's interesting.
So clear. So
it kind of reminds me of like in the Gospels when Jesus is like asking Peter like 3 times, like, "Simon Peter, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me?" I'm sure like Peter was thinking the same thing too. It's like, "Oh gosh, like, do I?" you know,
Yeah.
or like,
Yeah.
and then like after, that's beautiful. That's really interesting. And it sounds so clear to me that the Lord was really working in your heart. But
Absolutely.
so did you find it easy to like, after like realizing having these three experiences, did you find that it was really easy for yourself to say like, okay, I'm ready to sign on the dotted line, I'm going to seminary? Or like, how was that experience for you?
No, it was very gradual for
Oh,
me.
okay.
So I mean, I was kind of a tough customer. I think some people might have taken those three experiences and been like, okay, give me an application. But that wasn't me. That was just the beginning for me. So by the time those three experiences had happened, my senior year was just starting. So I remember that year I started talking to the chaplain on campus. I visited a religious community, and I was more proactive, but still kind of holding the whole discernment question at arm's length.
Yeah.
If you want, on one level, when I would pray about it, it just seemed to make sense. But then when I would actually talk to people about it and talk about making the next steps, it just seemed way too unlike what I was already doing. Studying economics, thinking about, maybe having a family. It just seemed crazy to even consider that. So it did take me some time. I actually, by the time I graduated, I still didn't feel that clarity that I was ready to make that step. So yeah, it actually took the whole next year for me to kind of come to that place of deciding, okay, no, I'm ready to apply to the seminary.
No, it's beautiful to hear that, because I think a lot of guys feel like, you have to have that perfect clarity to like be on this journey of like discerning the priesthood, and like people just really look for like this perfect clarity. And very oftentimes the Lord he gives us what he gives us, and he wants us to work with what he has given us. So
absolutely,
that's wonderful. But eventually you do sign on the dotted line and you do enter seminary. How's that experience, really briefly? Like, how has the journey through seminary have been these past like 4 years that you've been in formation?
Yeah, seminary's been really fruitful. Really fruitful. I mean, just a great time. There's so many great guys you meet in seminary.
Totally, yeah.
I mean, just the friendships you make there, the fraternity that's at the seminary is, I mean, it's such a gift. And yeah, so many interesting people that you meet at the seminary too. Just like the people that teach our classes, our professors, are just some of the most interesting people I've ever met. So it's been a great 4.5 years. I mean, not always easy. I mean, you're asked to do a lot of things that stretch you and that take you out of your comfort zone. But thankfully, just when you're faithful to prayer and you go back and you see, those were graces too. So yeah,
that's wonderful.
Really happy for the journey and excited to move forward.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Martin. I appreciate it.
Stephen. Yeah, good to be with you.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you or somebody that you love or know has a story that's similar to Martin's, maybe share this video, like this video, push it to them. Because maybe just like Martin, he needs a little bit, maybe you or somebody that you know needs a little bit more encouragement to enter seminary. And it's so important to talk to young men that you know who might be good fits for the priesthood. Let them know that, you could see them be a good priest. Thank you for tuning into this episode. Thank you, and God bless you.